if you wore like pleated pants in 1995, you were a nerd. You were like a loser. Only squares and your teacher wore that. And why would you want to look like that? Yeah, so you wouldn't like want to do those. Whereas now, because of the internet and all these things, lots of different looks can all fit together all at once. And welcome to the next episode of the Asian Not Asian podcast, the podcast with all your favorite Asian friends. It is Mike Nguyen. I did that really badly. I just offended all of my ancestors by saying my own name. I'm really bad at Vietnamese. So, but welcome to the show. Some quick announcements up top. One, if you're in the New York City area or planning to visit the New York City area, on November 2nd is our next Hack City. This is special because usually we have it on a Friday. This will be on a Saturday. So it's November 2nd is Hack City. It's at Union Hall in Brooklyn. Google Hack City Comedy or go to asiannotasianpod.com or go to the episode description to find tickets for that. Also, if you're a fan of just the Asian Not Asian universe, Fumi, our old co-host, is on tour right now, and he's got all sorts of dates. He'll be in Connecticut and Texas and all sorts of different places. So please check that out. You can go to fumiabe.com for tickets and more information. Also, we haven't done this in a minute, but if you're listening on your phones and you like what you're hearing, or you're going to like what you're hearing, take a screenshot right now of your phone and post it on Instagram. Tag us at Asian Not Asian Pod, or tag me, Nice Pants Bro, because that's really how we get more listeners. It's all social media, baby. It's all us rubbing Mark Zuckerberg's balls. That's all. It's all there is. Or you can follow us on Spotify. You can leave a review on the podcast app. And of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can like, rate, subscribe, do all those things. You can hit that little button that gives you a little star that people will follow you. We have kind of not a lot of subscribers, but not a lot. And so it's always nice. And I would like some people who are going to follow us, not only because we once had a porn star on here. I would love to have that. We always have comments, and it's always like super creepy. It's always like, her skin is so smooth. And I'm like, ugh.
Oh boy.
So please check that out. Of course, tell all your friends, and it's that would be great. Finally, we don't have any new Patreon subscribers this week, but usually we do. It's go to patreon.com/Asian Not Asian Pod. It's the best way to support the podcast. And we use the funds to support our antics. So please check that out. Patreon.com/Asian Not Asian Pod. Okay, so a little header up top here before we bring on our guests. This episode is a little bit different from the usual stuff, although it's going to be hella Asian in that we're going to dive a bit into, little bit into my other great love, which is pants and menswear. If you follow me on Instagram at Nice Pants Bro, and you should, because I literally tell you every single episode, you'll see that I've been doing this thing where I post about menswear, comedy and menswear. I've been doing some of that. I just think it's an interesting space. I don't want to get into all of it right now, but to me, how I dress a lot does have a lot to do with how I feel as an Asian man in America. Even though I dress like Danny Tanner from Full House and John F. Kennedy and a ranch hand from Double RL all got trapped in a teleportation chamber and got melded together like in the movie Fly. That's how I dress. It does have a lot to do with how I think of myself as an Asian American man, and it really does come from that, believe it or not. So for me, dressing has a lot to do with how we feel, how we see ourselves, and more importantly, how we want to see ourselves. And, and to have other people see us. It's actually not really about how other people are. It is, but it isn't. I don't know, it's confusing, but so I want to delve into that to more, and I hope you like it. It's sort of like the Asian Not Asian episode 325, but also the menswear episode number 1. So I hope you find this funny, because I think this is all hilarious. So to help us with this discussion, I'm excited to bring our guest on. He's a menswear obsessive. This is his words. He's a menswear obsessive, a photographer, a podcaster, a composer. He's co-host of the menswear podcast, Style and Direction. Menswear internet legend, huh? Okay, welcome to the show, Ethan M. Wong.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Thanks very much for coming onto the show.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I got coffee. Thank you again, by the way. I feel it coursing through my veins.
I'm glad you got it. I was trying to get you a breakfast sandwich too, but the place I go to didn't have any more sandwiches. So
already, I guess I don't know how fast do normal people just eat so quickly at the breakfast time? Is that the thing?
They just got to go through it by 5 a.m. It's all gone. No, I don't know why. They usually have it, but I was hoping you found a nice bodega and had a little breakfast, something. Oh, you had a donut.
I had I don't know what the specific name of this particular donut was because it's not like a classic circle donut,
right?
And not a donut hole. It was like a little loaf of thing with like a little jelly and like there's like coconut or something on top of it. I don't know. The guy gave it to me on like a piece of paper. It's not even wrapped or anything. There's no bag. It's just like he just took like a bounce or whatever thing and just like, here you go. And I'm like, thanks, and I just walk out the door.
Okay, there you go. Well, welcome to New York City. I'm glad you came out here because while this is a cute neighborhood, I think it can throw some people off because like you got to turn once you turn down 6th Street, you're like, oh, where am I? There's a lumber place called Dykes. There's like a Home Depot, that's kind of thing.
Like a cube storage.
Yeah, there's a cube storage.
Like 2 storage places that are over there. It's funny that's one of the storage places, whatever the biggest one is. It has like what I think is, if you remember the movie Where the Wild Things Are, that Spike Jones did. Yes.
Yes.
Font.
Yes.
It's on it, and it's like, store your stuff. I'm like, why does it look? It almost looks creepy. With this, like, like this like thin pencil drawn font. It's funny. I've actually been to that bar.
Halyards.
Yes. And one of my friends, Atelier Fugue, like he lives in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
My friend Dave. That's not, he's not an atelier. But no, I came down here once and we just had a drink, down there a couple years ago. I was like walking through. I'm like, why does I feel like I've been here before?
Yes.
But it's weird. It's the daytime.
I know, right? Yeah, it does look way different too, and it is like a weirdly industrial area, even though but if there's like a Whole Foods here, but then there's also
that's right
the lumber yard, and then there's like a cool bar, and then there's also an Aikido studio. This place is crazy.
New York or Brooklyn specifically.
Brooklyn, exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming. All the way down here. I guess we can get started with let's
do it.
Let's just get started with what I purposely didn't ask what you're wearing, even though I like what you're wearing, so that we could talk about it right now.
Okay.
We got to start from there. Sometimes we do fit checks because Jenny, the other co-host, she just is great, real cute.
Cool.
Hey, but this is a thing at least for me. I never really comment on women's clothes because I don't know shit about women's clothes.
Not my space.
That shit is scary to me. I'm just a little lonely boy, okay? I don't want to talk about women's clothes.
All women are beautiful.
All women are beautiful. I know nothing about it. That's your thing, okay? So, but what are you wearing today?
Okay, so I know that there is a right way to answer this because based on the other big podcast, that shall not be named. No, those are great guys. But I'm wearing on feet. I'm wearing the Wakua deck shoes.
Yes,
I got from the Armory. I think 2022, the last time I was here.
Okay, cool.
For people who don't know what that means, they look like Vans, but they're made better and they are shaped differently. And that's basically the menswear theme. Looks different,
no, it's
made
not.
Better.
You think it's Vans, but it's not.
It's not.
And actually, you've offended me deeply.
Damn.
It's shaped differently.
It's shaped. It's absolutely shaped differently. Like if you like a Vans Authentic is kind of like stubby and round. These are the opposite of that. However, if you are someone who is about the Sperry Cloud CVOs, these look closer to that. And now you might clown me for being like, well, why don't you just buy those? Those are cheaper. And that's another menswear thing. I could have bought the cheaper thing, but it's okay.
These are way better.
Yeah, I'm wearing some Uniqlo socks right now.
Cool.
And I got these M43 pants, which are like these like green. I guess people can see it later on, but I like these like green olive HBT pants from World War II. And instead of having like regular pockets, they just have these giant cargo pockets.
Like baffle pockets.
Yeah, just like on the upper thigh.
Yeah.
And so like that's it. There's no back pocket. There's no regular. It's just those two.
Do you have the I've always wanted these. I don't know if I'll get them anymore, but like I think they're called the monkey pants.
Oh yeah, with the ass pocket.
The big old ass pocket where I don't know, you keep your sandwich. I don't know idea, but you have any of those?
No, I don't. I mean, they're basically for those of you listening, they're very similar to mine, except they just have
no
a butt
ass pocket.
Yeah. Mine don't have the ass pocket. But I have a friend who has them, and the really rare ones are the ones where the guys had them and then cut the ass pocket off because it was uncomfortable because you would have these like brass button things on it. And so like it's funny, like people want that version.
The one that's all cut off.
I guess it's kind of cool because like the person who got it was like some soldier was like, fuck this.
Yeah, made a decision about doing that. That's so funny.
No, these are all regular ones. It's funny, like they're kind of rare-ish. Like, and also like people on like TikTok have started buying them.
Oh no.
And so It's okay. I got mine like 5 years ago, so
perfect.
you know the prices were better back then. But I found another pair at the flea market once for like $60, and so I'm like, I gotta buy them.
Of course, you have to.
Yeah, I know. And even though, like, I guess if these ever die, knock on wood, either I will replace them or I'm gonna cut up the other one and fix these ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm wearing those pants, and then as a shirt, I'm wearing this like 1940s reproduction shirt made of rayon. So it's got like kind of the big camp collars if people have seen. Like,
this is a reproduction.
This is a reproduction. No, this is a thing called swankies, which is like, you know, in LA, there's like a swing dance scene.
Oh, yes.
So you have a lot of these like small, like, you know, reproduction brands, and they're almost always polyester, but this particular one was rayon, which is what the original ones were made out of. And they have since brought the shirt back, and it is now fully polyester. So I'm assuming they just ran out of the fabric.
Right.
And so I will never. No offense to them, I'm not going to wear I'm not going to wear plastic on my skin here. And so yeah, I'm wearing that. I got a Capital.
This is Capital.
This is a Capital
nice.
bandana.
Bandana.
You know, my girlfriend got it for me for my birthday a couple of years ago, and it's really great. I did send her the link to it, so it's not like she got it, but she has good taste, you know? And then I'm wearing what looks like a 1930s sweater vest, but it is a Ralph Lauren one that I found at the flea market.
This is double RL.
No, it's regular polo.
It's regular polo?
Yeah, it's like a 90s like polo sweater vest. It just happens to look like that kind of thing. So I'm wearing that, and then my coat, which I got yesterday, is an Armory and Coherence, which is like this like Japanese brand, like this big coat that's supposed to look like a World War I or World War II dispatch coat. It's like a double-breasted trench coat, but there's no like buttons. It's kind of just like belts over.
Just belts over.
Yeah, there's like one fastening button, but like that's it.
Whoa,
it's really cool, really dramatic. And as I was just telling you, I mean, I bought a small, and if they had a medium, it was a sample sale, I might have bought that. And already in my DM, one guy was like, oh yeah, let me know if you sell it, because you know I think you're more of a medium, and I'm like, fuck you, dude.
He's just playing mind games. That guy just wants your shit.
But it might. He's got to wait at least a year. That's my whole thing. Yeah. You know, like let me wear it in the rare times it rains in LA, or if it rains here, you know, that'll be good. And then in a year, then we'll see how it goes. I try not to do that. I try not to, you know, I want to hold on to myself as much as possible. I want to be those old men that we see walking around all the time.
Have their shit.
Yeah, who have like you can see like there's like a little like sewing patch because of like maybe their jacket pocket like fell off or whatever. I want that to be me.
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
And you can't do that if you just keep selling stuff.
No, like the constant revolving through of everything. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the flipping culture. It's just like it's getting out of
that's
hand.
A big thing in menswear now.
It is
even
now.
more now.
Even more now. I mean, that's what people do now. Is just like
there's a whole market.
That's it. Which you haven't gone to it yet.
No,
it's not until this weekend.
That's right. But I'm still excited to go. Like to be clear, I'm excited to go there.
I mean, it's great.
You know, so even if I don't want to sell things after I buy them, that's personal.
For our listeners who haven't turned off the podcast yet, it's Armory is like a high-end, fancy but very cool menswear brand. And who was the guy? What's his name?
Mark Cho.
The man.
Yeah.
He once commented on one of my little Instagram reels.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, notice me, senpai." You know.
What did he say?
It's because I did a reel where I was like pretending like I was like, this is what Drake's lookbooks are like, and I wore like 5 ties at the same time and like 6 sweaters. And he's like, oh, it looks like you have a lot of Drake stuff though. So you know, thanks for doing that. Thanks for shopping with us. And I was like, yeah, of course.
That's very like. I don't even know what that is. Like, not even a diplomatic response. It's very, it's very like normal.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like, I mean, I've run into Mark like twice in my life. You know, he's not in LA ever. There's no Armory. There's no a lot of classic menswear stuff there. But you know, we're like mutuals, and you know, I posted like Megalopolis. I'm like, this movie sucks, and he commented, "Yeah, that sucked," and I was like, "Wow, okay, that's it. That's
just like a regular, like a
regular, yeah." And I'm like, "Heck yeah!" This guy who has been, did you see his like eBay watch ad thing?
Yes,
that like game show thing.
He like where he was like selling all of his watches and like all these things. I had no idea. I didn't check any of those out, but I do know that was happening.
Yeah, no, but he was also like in an ad for like eBay. It was crazy. Oh,
what?
And it was like.
Oh shit!
And it like I guess like the creative idea of this thing was like it was like some host and it was like a game show thing.
Yeah.
And like I guess the idea is like, oh, these rare watches that you know trying to figure this stuff out, like, oh, that's reference 2 for whatever. Like you can find that on eBay, and that was it. But like he was like on set, like it's like a whole like funny like family feud thing, and he was like, oh, finally able to share this. And I don't know if the reception was good because I don't remember seeing it come up again after that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of funny that, you know, he's kind of, I mean, for menswear guys, he's a menswear guy, but he's also a huge watch guy. And so, like,
Is he
He's
known
really
in the
big.
watch world as a watch guy?
Absolutely.
Really? Okay, I didn't even know that. I mean, I knew he was a watch guy, and I was like, he has very nice
no,
watches.
like he has done like lectures, or he always promotes like the horological society stuff, and yeah, I mean, I like small watches. I know he wrote this whole thing about like why small watches are cool. So maybe he's like trying to help push that. So it's
that's fucking cool.
He's cool, and he's Asian. Mark Cho.
I know.
That's the whole thing.
He's like the coolest of us.
Yeah.
I would be intimidated. I wouldn't look him in the eye or anything like that. It would be too much. Can I say too that because I saw that you got this at there's like kind of like a, do they call it a sample sale? Do they call it?
They do it every 3 years apparently.
Oh, fuck, I missed it. Oh well. So they have that.
Yeah.
Is there anything better than going to a sample sale? I just feel the energy and the excitement. I've never been to an orgy, but there's no way an orgy adds up.
Is an orgy competitive?
I don't know. Maybe certain
I don't know. I mean, I still have yet to experience, I guess, a true orgy. This felt more like, I mean, if it is an orgy, this is more like gladiatorial,
Right.
But there's like people come in like tribes, or whatever.
Yes, they roll in the
because like
crew.
it was, I was able to come on like a friends and family day. I think it might be still be going on at the time of recording. It might be still.
Oh, don't tell me
now.
that. Don't tell me that. I'll get right in my car.
But like, you could see like there are people who came like with their friends, who obviously are friends of like people at the armory. But like, man, like I get in there, people like are like taking things. And I don't really go to a lot of sample sales. I know most of them happen here.
Yeah.
And most of the time I'm not here when it happens.
Yeah.
So I have to remember like, it's not like, taking a mental check of, that was cool. It's, no, I need to hold on to this as I'm walking around, It was really small, and thankfully I'm like, different sizes than some of these other people. But like, they were like, like these two guys, they were splitting it up, and then they were like discussing it later, and like they have a pile, and I was like, yeah. To be fair, I also brought my friend, Annie, who's from, she's from, I met her in LA. She lives in Alhambra, which is a subsection of LA, but she lives here now, and so I brought her there, and she's been to other armory stuff, and it's cool. So I guess I had my own friends there a little bit too.
You got to the trick is to bring your romantic partner, right, and have them hold your stuff. Right, they follow you around kind of like a familiar, and then also it's a good test of the relationship, because if she can see you or he can see you in this state, and they still want to be with you, then they're a real one. If they can see you just like slobbering at the mouth, like digging through crates of like T-shirts or whatever, and they still love you, then that's a good test of, I think, the relationship. I mean, Isabel. So Annie's not my girlfriend. Right. Annie is like a friend, which is maybe even funnier because then she's more real with me if something is like. Oh yeah, for sure. My wife is very real with me. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
No, I mean, I kind of makes me wonder if how Isabel would have felt over there. Also, I don't know if she would technically enjoy this trip, because I've literally just been doing menswear stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like when I come with her, it's got to be like, it'll be great. It'll be like real touristy stuff, but like through her lens.
Sure.
And not like, oh, hey, we're going to go to this menswear thing. Also, we're going to go to this club or whatever at like 12. And it's like, okay.
But that sounds awesome. That's
cool.
what New York City is about, right?
Me and Isabel don't do that. That's the whole...
Sure.
I guess, we do some of it, but like not... It's a different energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've always thought that... I'm surprised there isn't a show like this where... It would be like Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations, but with menswear. Because for me, whenever I travel, I go shopping.
Yeah.
And, sure, maybe I'm not shopping in Utah. Although that's not true. When I go to Utah, there's some great Western wear. So
That's true.
It's shopping, and menswear is a great way to go see the city. Like, I obviously organize my trip to Tokyo that way, or to Paris that way.
Yeah.
And then you get to meet cool people, and then you ask them, where should we hang out, like, after? And they're like, go to this cafe, go to this bar, go to this club. And it's like a cool way to kind of like, menswear places are usually in cool neighborhoods, and they have cool events, and it's a cool way to, I think, like, organize your trip and then and waste a lot of money, but like, it could be a lot of fun. I wanted to get thank you again for coming onto the show. For people who don't know who you are, who are you?
Obsessive.
A menswear obsessive. You're a photographer, podcaster. You also have you have a blog, which is like it's 2010. That's right. And you still maintain it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I'm crazy.
Yeah, like give us a little rundown.
Yeah. So I'm from Pasadena. I'm from the San Gabriel Valley.
Hell yeah.
SGV Asians. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm a self-described menswear obsessive. I love menswear. I love clothing, specifically like classic menswear, vintage menswear. I feel like that both of those things are still kind of broad, even though I remember I went on a date with someone a long time ago. For if Isabel's listening, and no, she was all like, "Wow, you have such a narrow style," and I'm like, "I don't see it that way."
Wow,
like my outfit today, it's kind of like it's like double RL, kind of like casual, like Japanese Americana inspired kind of thing, which is different than yesterday where I was wearing like a striped tie with like
you
a
were
gray
wearing
jacket.
like a very was that like the jacket of a suit?
Yeah, basically.
With the suit, right?
I got clowned for that too, by the way. Like, someone's like, "Oh, that's a suit jacket, not a sport coat."
You know, this is all fucking Derek's fault. I once I got this beautiful jacket from Drake's, and it was a suit jacket, and I didn't have the pants, and I emailed him, and I was like, "Hey, can I wear this? You think without?" No. And he's like, "No, this is not a thing." And I was like crying.
Oh no!
I was like, I have to listen to what you. And I went and I bought the fucking pants because I wanted to have the matching. He's probably right, but
is that Asian on Asian hate crime?
Yes, dude. I know. I think he's Vietnamese.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I've never seen or met him, so I can't confirm or deny it. But I think he's. He's got. Yeah.
I think he is. I actually think he's Vietnamese. I think he's Chinese Vietnamese. This is from the data algorithm.
He talks about
he's talked about being
like about
Vietnamese,
his like immigrant family
yes,
or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay,
I think he's from Canada or something. Anyways, but yes, that was
speculation.
Yeah, that was Asian on Asian violence right there.
I guess today, Nick was the one who teased me, so I guess that's like half Asian on Asian violence right there.
Wait, continue. You're a menswear obsessive. You got all sorts of different things.
Yeah, I love, as you said, I write a blog in my free time because I just have all these thoughts about it. It's not, for those of you who look it up, it's called a little bit of rest.com. And for the real heads, it was called streetexprezza.wordpress.com a long time ago because the short story was I was in college and I was in my business law class. I graduated early. I started my third year, so your junior year, and then my advisor was like, "By the way, you're going to be done after this year." And I'm like, "What the fuck? Like that's crazy." Apparently, my AP credits all counted.
Oh wow, you actually used those?
Yeah. Well, I guess if you are not majoring in sciences, they just count. And I was doing business and whatever. So anyway, I just as long as I did a full load that last year, I would have finished. And of course, I'm not going to be I'm not going to waste another year of tuition for incubation period. Although you can't deny sometimes people need to grow up, and
I would have stayed. If they would have let me stay another 2 more years, I would have definitely. I mean, it was I
went back for an MBA.
Oh, there you go.
That counted as my senior year or whatever. Extra 4.5 years or whatever total.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was like, I got to do something. I got and I had a Tumblr before then, and I used to do I would post gifs of fucking Star Wars. It was a real fandom Tumblr. I mean, then I would blog menswear stuff, and it made my followers very confused. All of a sudden, this nerdy guy was posting people walking down cobblestone streets, or there's this Asian guy in Hong Kong with cool glasses who has a store that takes dramatic lighting. Mark Cho.
Yeah.
So it was really funny. I'm like, I got to put this somewhere else that's not my Tumblr. And so I made a blog. I made a WordPress, and I took a road trip. I went to San Francisco, 6-hour trip, whatever, with my friend Tim. And he's like, oh, he likes streetwear. I like menswear. So and the term there is sprezzatura. So we made Street Exprezza. And he didn't really write anything. It was kind of just a thing we talked about because I just started it, and I was like, yeah, just let me know when you want to write whatever you want. If you buy sneakers or whatever. He's like, yeah, I'll do that. And it kind of just, he did something else with his life, and I just kept doing it. And so eventually it became a little bit of rest.com when I decided to have a real domain, and I wanted to rebrand it as something that was completely me because it was. I loved him. He wrote 2 articles. That's okay. Yep. So I've just been doing it ever since. I have all these thoughts of vintage clothing because I love all of that. I love this kind of cosplay approach to menswear in a very positive way because, as you said before, about how it makes you feel. And before this, I would lightly cosplay stuff at conventions or whatever.
What did you cosplay?
I love Death Note. That's one
of
the
really?
classic
Okay.
ones. Yeah, and so it's funny. I'm Filipino. I have a round face. I do not have the lanky proportions.
Sharpness.
Of any of the characters in Death Note. But I did both. I did L, who is this really scrawny guy wearing this baggy white t-shirt and big blue jeans, which I guess is kind of cool now. He's got this crazy anime hair, and you've got the protagonist Light Yagami, who is got blonde or yellow hair, and he's he's very lanky. He wears a school uniform, at least for the first season. And I did both. I wore that one, and I wore the L thing. I even bought a wig for that. And so, but I really learned about, okay, well, you can't just wear a t-shirt and jeans. You gotta have the really baggy jeans. You gotta have this long sleeve white t-shirt, and of course you have to have the hair and the eyeshadow, because L is very, he doesn't sleep or whatever. And then with light, he wears like a Japanese school uniform, which is like, like dark gray pants or black pants with like a khaki jacket, red tie. And so like that always taught me like there are things that people do or characters that you can like signal certain things, because you can't just be like, oh, I'm Light Yagami and wear what I'm wearing right now.
Yeah.
And so like that kind of transferred over to menswear, especially with vintage, where I'm like, okay, I'm watching this movie. Why does this look different than like what Barney Stinson is wearing on How I Met Your Mother? And it's not just about fit, right? It's not like, oh well, it's a slim fit versus like big pants. Like no, like there's like the way the lapel is, the types of patterns that people are wearing, like the buttoning point, and then that naturally leads to okay now. With like regular menswear or classic menswear as they call it now, contemporary, whatever. Like, oh, people talk about that in terms of like bespoke clothing. That's how I found Derek. I'm like, oh, Derek talks about this stuff too from like a, not really a period dressing lens, but just about like just classic proportions, or like even like comparing different tailors. Like, oh, this tailor has broader shoulders, shorter jackets, whatever. And
it can get so detailed, like as far as like, oh yeah, where's the the shoulder drop and the angle of this and like your buttoning point, and then like like the drape cut, like all these different things.
Exactly, and that's so fascinating to me. And of course, Derek and Permanent Style Simon Crompton have their own things, and so like I got to do something for myself, and I kind of just wrote from this perspective of like, kind of like, what do I want to look like, and here's how I achieve it, with the hope that or maybe not the expectation, but the idea that someone might find it interesting and kind of adapt what I'm saying to their own style. It's like it's not really a guide, it's not really a buying guide either, but it's just kind of like a diary collection of essays. Some of it can be kind of more descriptive of like, oh, I like this collar, let's talk about this collar, and some of it's like about like, oh, what is authenticity? What does that mean for me?
Right.
What is even, you said earlier, kind of like being an Asian American, like what does that mean? How does that play into my own style? And so like I just have all this stuff, and this blog was like a great place to kind of put it, and it was 2015, which is a little bit late for some mentor
that's
bloggers.
On the end. I feel the end point of
and
Web 2.0.
And pre Substack era, like
way before Substack.
So it's like I'm in a weird spot now, but I could never. I mean, it's just been there. It's like an institute. It's my institution.
Yes.
And so it's just there, and that's all me. And I do a podcast with my friends where I get to talk with their perspective. Spencer is not Asian, and he's got a different style. So like there is a place where he can inject his voice into the whole conversation, and so I just do that for fun. I don't work in menswear. I have like a kind of a creative-ish job. I've always worked in like creative agencies, stuff like that. And I try and keep it alive. Menswear. I like writing music, stuff like that. So.
I want to get into, you touched upon it already about sort of your Asianness, and you're from the San Gabriel Valley.
That's right.
And not sure where we can get started, but I guess like how did you get interested in clothes? Did it have to do with like you being who you are, or like where you grew up? That's a really
good question, because I've always said that it's kind of tied to or a response to my upbringing, because from first to 12th grade, basically K through 12, I went to a Christian academy. Specifically, it's Seventh-day Adventist, which is a specific denomination. They go to church on Saturdays, kind of like Judaism,
right.
And they keep kosher as well. They don't eat shellfish and pork, which I do now, because I'm what they call a bad Adventist. I'm not even practicing at all. But I mean, when I was in high school or whatever, I'd be a bad Adventist. And so we had uniform, and it was the same thing.
Yes.
And I've met people who get into it from that point of view of like, oh, I like having the set idea of what I can look like. I like looking clean. But for me, it sapped all form of like creativity away from me.
Yes, of course.
But it still made me feel insecure, because when you really think about it, when you have a uniform, it becomes all about the details now, right?
Yes.
And so like my parents always bought like super big clothes. And I'm 5'8". Or I'm barely 5'8", and in high school I was like 5 feet or whatever it is, but they would buy like large, and they're like, oh yeah, you'll grow into it, and I never did. So like it was really baggy, and not in a cool way either. It was very like, I'm a nerd, so like it doesn't really help that you look like a disheveled nerd who like doesn't take care of himself or whatever.
It just accentuated the fact that yours not that big.
Exactly. It's like that stuff too. There's also like people pay attention to shoes, because like that's the only place you can like show stuff off.
So in the uniform code, were you allowed to wear different shoes besides wearing black?
Yeah, you could wear tennis shoes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So was sneakers a big thing? Not as big as
as now, but like you could definitely tell, and then it was like, they were like, style tribes. Like, you know, of course, like the skater people who wear like Vans.
Yeah.
You know, that's all I kind of remember. I guess that was like that of that era. You know, maybe like the kind of like DC high tops, kind of like what.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, like Justin Bieber basketball shoes, I guess, were kind of a thing. And I don't even remember what I even wore back then. I might have just worn my gym shoes because my parents only wanted to buy me one pair of shoes that you just wear the whole time. And at the time, I didn't really care until I got to college, and I was like, okay, my parents like, here you go. And I'm like, oh, shit, what the hell do I wear now? You know, and of course I would follow them like, oh, well, I know that you're supposed to wear like a button-up shirt and pants. And so when my parents would kind of dress me, or I would just kind of base it on what I would see. So it's like, it's very of the time, right? 2010s is when, or I went to college in 2012. You know, I'm wearing like a slim fit, you know, shirt. I roll up the sleeves. We're untucked with like some like slim jeans from like Hot Topic, and I wear them with Vans. And, you know, I did that for a little. But before that, I was wearing like gym clothes as a real nerd with like the backpack and like a lanyard, like a true college freshman.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, maybe put the lanyard in your pocket. You
exactly.
Know, have it sticking out.
Oh my goodness,
classic. I love the fall. It's sweater weather, and I can finally layer. But fall means our schedules get busier. Back to school activities for the kids, tighter work deadlines as we approach the end of the year, or the start of the holidays. So it's easy to forget about taking care of ourselves. During this busy season, one simple but effective thing you can do for yourself is to start taking Nutrafol. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement, with over 1 million people seeing thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair with less shedding. Thinning hair is different for men and women, so a one-size-fits-all approach to hair growth doesn't cut it. Nutrafol has multiple formulas that are tailored to give your hair what it needs to grow based on your biology, life stage such as postpartum or menopause, and lifestyle factors such as plant-based lifestyles. Physician-formulated with drug-free ingredients, Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting key root causes of thinning: stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism through whole body health. With a Nutrafol subscription, building a hair growth routine is simple. Purchase online, no prescription required. Automated deliveries and free shipping keep you on track. Plus, you can save up to 20%, you'll have access to free naturopathic doctor consults, and a Headspace membership is included. Get results you can run your fingers through. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code ASIAN. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code ASIAN. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code ASIAN.
There's a picture of me, like I think like one of the first weeks, and some of the cool people who did not have a uniform. But I also went to an SDA college, by the way.
Oh wow!
And so but you could tell some people were already cool because like the first week they're wearing like what is of the moment, and I'm still there in like gym clothes, and I'm like, there's a picture of me, and I'm like, this sucks, you know?
Yeah.
So like eventually it kind of just like forced me to think about it. And of course, you know, being on Tumblr and you want to start trying to date people. I didn't date anyone in high school. You know, there's a lot of reasons for that. It's all me. No. And so, you know, it kind of was like, okay, what do I want to look? It was like, well, yeah, what do I want to look like? What does this mean?
Yeah.
You know? And then unfortunately I saw the Great Gatsby movie and I was like, that's what I want to look like. And then an 18-year-old in college or whatever, like that's not going to be great. You know? And so like, okay, well, I know I can't wear vintage all the time. So maybe I'll wear like an H&M sport coat and I'll wear it with like a slim tie, and I basically look like Ben Wyatt from Parks and Rec.
Yes, I know
like
exactly what you're talking about. That was the look, though. That was a great look.
Yeah, but then everyone now thinks like, oh, what are you like? You know, they either think you're trying too hard or whatever. And especially with a Christian college, it's really weird where like you look like a youth pastor, and that either means that you look really religious, and I was like really losing that whole thing.
Yeah.
Or you look like you're trying to be.
Yes.
And so like then you're like in this weird middle ground of like no one really thinks that you're interesting or thinks, you know, like it's really weird.
Yeah.
And so that was also a fucking that messed me up too. But thankfully with the internet, fast forward to now, like, oh, now I have friends now. I meet people who wear cool clothing and it doesn't fucking matter.
College is such a crazy time because you are trying to like figure out who you are. I remember when I went to college, they had like a preview weekend.
That's right. Yeah.
You can go there for like and stay and like meet some of the people you're going to be in the dorm with.
That's right.
And that was really exciting. But then I remember coming home and going like, man, I really need to go shopping. But I didn't like. I was into clothes, but I just remember like I really need some new hoodies. That was like the thing because I saw everybody wearing hoodies, and I was like, I really need to get like some cool hoodies and like, you know, like be sure that I didn't think of it like this, but I I felt like I needed to fit in, or I needed to change also. I went from Southern California to Northern California, and I was like, okay, they talk differently here, they look different, the climate is different, you know, and I was like going through this whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear, because I think with this comes up, I found something on Reddit about you, and it was like, you know, there is how you want to dress, right? The things you get excited about, like The Great Gatsby, or in my case, like dressing like a ranch hand. And then that butts up against your actual life, right? Like you're in college, and you know, or you're not a ranch hand, you know,
straight up,
straight up. I'm not a ranch hand. I'm a podcaster or a comedian, right? And like, how do you kind of mitigate those things, and like, how do you like find this other ground? Because it sounds like for you, you know, you saw The Great Gatsby, and you wanted to get into vintage clothes, and then you found that wasn't going to quite work for you, at least at that time.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so, like, it's funny to think how everything that we own, all the clothes, all signal something, or they have connotations to everything. And it's funny, I used to not really think this, but like, I kind of believe what Derek has said too, where like sometimes like the neutral thing is like a suit, right? Like, 'cause, like, you know, and that's not exactly true. Obviously, we think, well, that, you know, the corporate uniform has changed, and like even now the suit's kind of outdated. You know, people are wearing like the Patagonia vests. You know, I mean, even that might be like moving away now.
Right.
And so it really is interesting to me about that. But, you know, I've also found it kind of fun to figure out, like, what does that mean, or what does it say about me when I'm doing the things in my regular life? And, you know, I had this conversation recently, actually, where, you know, I was like watching How I Met Your Mother.
Yes.
And, you know, you know, you see Barney, and Barney wears a suit all the time, but he also like wears it outside of the office.
Yes.
And then Ted has this kind of like hipstery intellectual thing, you know, he has like a corduroy jacket, and an untucked shirt kind of a thing. And I remember back in the day thinking like, okay, well, like I'm like neither one of these guys, like truly, right? Like I like suits, but I'm not, you know, a misogynistic Barney or whatever it is. And I'm also like not as like lovey-dovey as Ted, although in high school that is probably what I was.
We all were,
you know, unrequited stuff.
Yes.
And I was like, you know, there's got to be something in my head that like, you know, like where people just wear suits and just, you know, or it's just what they do. You know, they just wear it, and it's not exactly tied to their job, but it's also like not like, you know, like a corporate uniform, whatever it is. And so I was always wondering, like, what is this? Also, like, I wanted a character to identify with, and it sounds so pretentious and funny, but like Frasier.
Yes, dude, Frasier's the man, dude.
I know, wearing Armani, very of the moment, you know? And so, like, you know, watching that, like, I found that, like, kind of like late high school, like, and I watched it all through college, and yeah, it's really pretentious. He's pretentious. That's
the whole point is that he's pretentious. Yeah.
But it's like, you know what? Like, why can't you would that be the thing you wear? And it's not really tied to being a radio host, right? And he just goes to coffee shops all the time and drinks coffee.
And and has like highbrow conversations with his brother. Yeah.
And it's so funny because they're both so dumb, you know? And I'm like, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, as I'm an adult now, I'm 29, and I get to like, you know, have my agency, and I get to work from home, thankfully, knock on wood. And so, like, you know, like it's become just kind of like this is who I am. Like, this is the person that I am. And there are a little bit of these signals that kind of like, okay, today's suit is like vintage inspired. I'm gonna throw a nod to like my past and present. That's like a vintage collector. And then sometimes like, oh, I want to dress like Frasier because I just watched an episode yesterday. I really like the combination. Or it'll be like, I'm gonna be super casual, and I'm gonna wear like this like Japanese Americana stuff. That ties to, again, vintage, but in a different way. And then. But it's like, oh, I can just wear this doing whatever I'm doing. Yes. Walking around, I guess right now, walking around New York. But, you know, in LA, like getting some boba. Because at the end of the day, like, nothing really matters. You know? If you work from home, there's no context, right? You can dress completely for yourself, or at least what you decide for yourself. Right. You know? And so if people, you know, maybe there are some days where, like, the coffee shop, like I want to stunt on some people.
Yes, exactly.
Or dress in a way for them to kind of facilitate something, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, you hit on a bunch of things, and I want to get into this question of, like, you know, it sounds like you had your sort of own story, and it's I think mirrors what, you know, me, as far as like, okay, this is just the part of it is like what I want to present to other people, and part of it is just like, this is just what I like to wear. You know? But do you think something about Asian dudes and the kind of Asian dudes who get into clothes and I kind of think especially preppy clothes and like menswear-y clothes, not always, you know, it could be a streetwear thing, but like, do you think there's something unique about the way that Asian American dudes approach clothing, you know?
Ooh, yeah. I hope that none of these are like too hot of takes.
No, go for it, buddy.
No, I mean, there's like it kind of depends on who we're talking about, because like there's always Asian memes about like the international students, the ones who are like from like the home country versus like the Asian Americans who are like descended from people who've immigrated here. In terms of the descendants of immigrants, or maybe like more recent immigrants, like there might be this idea of like assimilation. Right.
Yes.
And that can also depend on where you live in the United States, right? And so a lot of people can move to like Kansas for some reason.
Yep.
And then, and you have all these stories of like, and they kind of, I feel like in my head, they kind of get into like alt or like skate clothing over there, because it's a little bit subversive. Like in these places, it doesn't have to be rural, but like, these like regular, not metropolitan stuff, the alternative culture, is like skate culture or whatever that
is. I know some Asian dudes, they got into like hardcore.
Exactly. Yes. No.
Because
exactly.
It's like they feel like they don't belong necessarily.
If you're already othered, you might as well join or try and be part of this thing that is already considered an other.
Yes, exactly.
No, that's exactly it. And so there's that. But if you're in a metropolitan area, then you have trends, and it depends on how much you want to. What level of assimilation do you want? Do you want to like aspire to be in the mainstream, or do you not want to do it? And I feel like, and that's the thing that you can apply to anywhere. But like, it just depends on like what you're exposed to and what you see. And, based on TikTok or based on like, the experiences now, I feel like, people lean a lot more into like what's mainstream now. And what's also funny is like some of these indie niche, outcast styles are kind of becoming corified and becoming mainstream. Yes. And so there's this whole thing of like, not stolen valor, but kind of like posturing. But it's just funny to see like, Asian American guys kind of, it makes more sense to kind of like fall into that whole thing.
Yeah.
And the hope is that you find like what is truly, applicable to you.
Right.
Although maybe the bigger hot take is, does anyone really stay in one thing anymore?
Yeah.
Even with menswear, right? You go from one thing to another. Like I said earlier, I try not to do that to the best of my ability.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a little susceptible to it. I'm sure that's my experience as well. Like growing up, I don't know if there's definitely not the same like experience now, but like, I didn't want to dress like those Asian Americans. I want to dress in my way. But I guess my way is not really what Asian Americans wear at the time. But now, there's so many Asian American, menswear guys. There's a lot of Asian American influencers now that you can get inspired by. I guess you could maybe consider me one of those influencers. Mm-hmm. I don't like that term, but but it's like one of those things of, at least at the time, there wasn't really anyone like that was like me, and I was very aware. Like Mark Cho isn't Asian American; he's from Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? For me, I want to kind of set my own path here, because there was no other Asian Americans, at least that I could see, and so that was like a big thing for me to kind of like, I want to do that. And maybe someday some other Filipino Chinese kid will be like, hey, I want to dress in a way that's not what the typical Filipino Americans or Chinese Americans dress. I want to dress like you, which would be really nice, to kind of like make the name of like menswear, but like not do it too preppy.
I love what you're saying too, and it reminds me of why I got into this too. It is like, I don't feel like I am, this I'm not white, but I don't feel like I'm like those other Asian guys, right? Like the way the Asian guys in my, I guess in college and in high school dressed, it was I mean, this is the Bay Area, right, too, so it was like very, a North Face fleece, right? Mm-hmm. With like New Balance shoes and like some, I don't know, Carpenter jeans or some shit like that. It actually sounds kind of cool right now, but like, it was like
the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Of the moment. I was like doing that, and then I wasn't doing that, and then it was like I was trying to distance myself from that look for a little bit, and then sometimes I wasn't trying to do that. I was like, trying to be the cool hip hop guy with the trucker hat, you know?
Yeah.
And, but I like what you say as far as like, you're trying to just like define what you're about, and then, hopefully, I don't know, inspire the next someone to do that.
Yeah. No, I mean, you bring a good point about like, not dressing some other Asians or like trying to play something up. I always felt like I wasn't like Filipino enough.
Oh yeah, God. Yes.
And that's like a universal Asian American thing. Especially if you're around all of these people. And in the San Gabriel Valley, there's not a lot of Filipinos there, and so at least at the time, and I was around a lot of like Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean people at my particular school. And it's funny, a couple of miles away in Glendale, which is where my friend MJ went. He also was SDA. There's more Filipinos there, and so there's a little bit of like a difference here. So whenever I would hang out with him or go to his school or whatever, outside of the school rivalry thing that we had, like there's like, I guess, swagapinos, and I'm like, oh, that's like not me.
Yes.
And I try not to like harp on it or try not to dwell on it too much, but it really did feel weird for me to be like, I'm Filipino, we're Filipino, but like we're so different. We're so different. Yeah. And it comes out of, maybe it's a little bit of like, yeah, like, if you're an other thing or you're in a minority group, and then so you like things that are alternative or whatever. But I was always like a nerd. I was never like alternative, maybe like in terms of like fandom and artsy stuff maybe, but like I wasn't listening to hip hop, I wasn't dressing like, I wasn't really swaggy or whatever. I was listening to like John Williams music and all that kind of stuff, which I still do nowadays. If you go on my Instagram, you'll see all my analyses of that kind of shit, but it was like I always felt weird, and and I feel like that kind of like probably got me into like menswear stuff, where it's like I like this stuff, and even if it's not really like what I'm supposed to wear, like what this idea of a Filipino American would wear, or even Asian American, I just liked it. I liked like it for like what it was. Just like I like. People can think I like John Williams just because it's Star Wars, but in reality, I like his style of music. And I've been trying to do things like I do with menswear, like I'm trying to explain like the merits of it, and not just like, oh, it's epic or it's from this movie. It's like, no, like you got to hear what he's doing. Just like with the suit, it's not about looking professional. It's about, I mean, it sounds dumb, but like the lines, like this particular thing, and so doing it that way. And so even today, like I'll go to like the flea market, or I'll go to like some other pop-ups in LA, and again, the Filipino guys, they're all cool, they're all very nice now. We're like adults, like in our 30s or whatever. But I still feel like I'm like not really like like the same, it doesn't help that I'm there wearing a fucking suit and a beret and not in a cool ALD way.
Not the cool ALD beret. I'm the Mets like, beret.
Yeah, I'm looking like an old 1930s illustration where there are definitely no Asian people in those illustrations. But I'm saying if you want to, you can. Like that's the whole thing.
There's so many things you touched on, but like one thing real quick about the beret thing though, is that if I once went to France, I went to Paris like a couple years ago. I went to the War Museum, and I was walking through the World War I part, and there was a picture, and there was colonial troops that had raised to fight in World War One. Vietnam didn't exist as a country yet. And they were called Annamese, Annam, A-N-Nam, right? So Annamese, they were like, you can think of it as like Cambodia, Vietnam, right. like this is the French Indochina.
Yeah.
And there was a dude, he looked just fucking like me. He was there, and he was standing at the, in front of the Eiffel Tower, and he was with his troops, and he had a double-breasted, he was dressed like a French soldier. And he had a beret on. And I was like, awesome. This guy looks tight, although it is also kind of disturbing that he is a colonial soldier, like raised out of his thing to fight in this other war that he has nothing to do with. But I was like, dude, the way that like, people think, oh, you're Asian, you shouldn't be doing this or that, or people might try to put on you that like you're this kind of person, you should do this. That's not fucking true. Whether you want to look at it historically or not, like these are all just symbols that we're pulling from, and that are being either put on us or we take up, right? That that we kind of put together to form our identity, and those things are so nebulous, and I think sometimes people like feel like they need to gatekeep them because they're, these things are porous, like there is no real meaning to any of these things. And I think the thing that Derek Dye Workwear is always kind of talking about is that like, people can ascribe meaning to clothing, but the reality is that like, different groups will draw from them, and it's a continuous conversation that like people add on to the conversation or take away from the conversation. And so anyways, it's just like, it's not what you think it's like. That's what I think you're trying to get to.
Absolutely.
I think too, I wanted to really get into this. So you're here, you're visiting from LA. How's your New York menswear trip going? Are you?
Yeah, it's great.
And then compare that to like the LA thing.
That's a good one. I mean, LA has no classic menswear. That's not really a dig. It's just kind of like the West Coast they don't need to wear fucking suits and ties that cost thousands of dollars. I mean, I'm not spending that much, but like, they're not even really thrifting that kind of stuff, But yeah, here it's been really great. Obviously, there's like these like main stores. I've had my saved stores for years on my Google Maps, and it's kind of fun. I was last here in 2022, and kind of like going back through it, And you get to see it, like all of the people wearing suits and ties, or even like ALD where they're wearing suits, but like not in the suity
kind of in
a trad way.
Right.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
And then going to like menswear events where you get to see like the variety of different stuff, which is really great. And like kind of like what we said, like there's always something happening on a fucking Wednesday.
I know. I saw on your Instagram stories you were like out clubbing on a Wednesday.
That's right.
DJ.
That was crazy. Yeah. A post menswear thing with some menswear people over there. Fucking crazy. Yeah, so like it's definitely like there's more of a culture here, and obviously it's more of an industry here as well. Those things kind of go hand in hand, but it's really great. It feels like a shopping tour, but like not really. It's almost like a tour, right? Like looking at these stores, getting ideas, seeing people. I'm sure everyone's gonna see me copy every single one of those fits after that party. I'm a very big proponent of like I see it, I do it.
Yeah, that's a big thing you do. Is you'll like pull something either from like an old ad or sometimes just like somebody walking around.
Yeah.
And you go, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. It just helps that I have so many clothes. But luckily, I have enough clothes where I don't have to buy new ones. Like, I just already own it. It's nothing too crazy.
Yes.
I'm not really like, I'm never really picking a fit that like has something that I have to buy just for that thing, which is really, economical. But yeah, no, like here you get a lot more of that. In LA, you got to seek it out more. You know
really?
what I mean?
Okay.
I mean, over there, there's a lot of great stores over there in LA. It leans more casual.
For sure.
And because most of the suiting over there is like departments or like Bloomingdale's. Like, that's not really, you can get that anywhere or buy it online, which is probably why they've like closed a lot of stores.
Right, sure.
And there's like made to measure places out in LA, but like that's not like a shopping. Like you go there to get something. It's like you don't go to In-N-Out to like look at what's on the menu. You go there because you want to get a double.
Right. Yeah, and there's not like a browsing experience. And like here in New York, the stores are really built around like did you go
retail.
to ALD? Did you go to,
No, I haven't. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna go back. I'll like pass through the whole thing.
As much like people will hate on it, but like the world they've created is like, mwah. It is so.
Yeah, like a portion there, right?
There's a portion in it. Yeah. It's all like wood paneled, which sounds terrible.
Doesn't Buck Mason also have a car in there?
I haven't been to Buck Mason, but probably. Yeah. I mean, every single menswear store.
Each other.
Yeah, exactly. They all should have kayaks and shit in there.
True.
Like it's.
Oh yeah, the J. Crew store has the new one. Somewhere has a kayak.
Has a kayak in there. I mean, they're trying to do their thing, and like it's weird because J. Crew is now like the heritage store.
That's right.
And they
finally, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Again, it's been like 20 years. Or
yeah, exactly. They used to be a fake heritage store, and now they're actually in the heritage store.
Really funny. They just had to wait like the 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, exactly. That's so crazy.
Yeah. The retail thing is such an exciting thing. Also,
it's just so fun to just look at
talking
stuff.
to shop people too.
Yes.
That's really cool. In LA, again, you don't really have a lot of that, or maybe I feel more. I mean, even here, I still feel pressure. Like I'm not gonna buy anything, but I just want to like look around.
Just enthusiasts, people who are just like. Yeah, like the workers who you can just like nerd out about like what's like the cool item or the hat or like did you just notice this is sick, like hey, and there's not, I mean, I'm sure everybody's trying to make the sale, but like you'll end up into this conversation with somebody for like 20 minutes, and it was just like a fun like interaction, and you end up buying like a keychain. You're like, okay, this is all I can afford.
Yeah. I afforded those that 5 minutes of conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it is funny. I mean, maybe someday the armories, all of the talking will pay off for them when I buy a $300 tie or something.
Yeah.
That's not true. I bought shoes from them because I like their shoes. So I guess it did pay off for them after my years of following them.
Right.
But the thing about in LA though is I think like the vintage scene. I think like the flea markets and like
the flea markets are fire.
Maybe like more vintage stores. I think thrift stores are getting a little bit tapped out. There's a whole thing people talk about like the death of thrifting because now everything in there is fast fashion, right?
Really?
That's kind of like I feel like that's across the board, but I feel like I'm starting to see it now. Where like before you'd see like old Ralph Lauren, Brooks Brothers, or not even that. Like it could just be like these random old stores from like the 70s or 80s. You'd find that there. But now it's like, oh cool, there's Abercrombie, Hollister, H&M shirts, stretch shirts, whatever. And like, you're not really getting anything good anymore. Because that's what we were making, right? For like the past 10, 15, 20 years.
So that stuff is now like gotten into thrift stores.
Exactly.
Really?
So maybe in another 20 years when all the good stuff now, because Abercrombie got kind of a bit better, J. Crew got better again. Maybe we'll 20 or if the planet is still here, then we will see that in the thrift stores again. But the big thing is flea markets, curated vintage stores, because
that's where you're gonna find thrifting.
I mean, yeah,
it's good thrift now.
Yeah, maybe the price is probably not as good as they were 5-10 years ago, but that's where all the Levi's 501s are. That's where all the Wranglers are. That's where all of the chore coats or whatever are. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, to think now, I went to this thing called Inspiration LA, which is this trade show started by, I think his name is Rin Tanaka or someone like that, where it's started by this Japanese guy who collected vintage, and he just had a trade show. He just wanted to have vendors and his friends pop up, both vintage, curated vintage, and reproduction Japanese brands, and it would be hosted in LA. And this year it's in Tokyo now.
Oh shit!
So it's I don't even know. People the numbers have gone down just over the years, and with COVID and everything. But it's stuff like that where it's just like you think about it. Yeah, LA. Leather jackets, military stuff. There's military bases, San Diego, whatever. Yeah. So you see all that kind of stuff there, and so at the flea markets, the Rose Bowl, or even local stuff, you'll find that kind of thing.
It's still pretty good there, at the flea market. I mean, like you said, maybe the prices aren't quite,
but you still find some cool stuff. I mean,
that's cool.
I gotta stop going because when it does get boring, when you see the same stuff over and over, and if it's kind of priced high, the pieces return. So it's okay, well, the guy hasn't sold this yet, so it's still there. But there's always that hope where where you find those vendors who are literally just piles of clothes.
Yes, and
you'll find something. I mean, that's why probably cotton, jeans or military stuff, is probably the best because there's no holes. You might have stains,
right?
But with wool stuff, if it's
going to get stretched out,
it's
going to get eaten.
Exactly, but that's still part of the cool stuff. I'm sure you could find that here. I mean, with New York or the East Coast in general, I'm sure
it's hard. I think the curated thing. There's a lot more. It wasn't that long ago that I was into streetwear, and there's a lot more of those things, a lot more sneaker resale places. There's all those streetwear resale places.
Yeah.
I haven't done proper I don't even know if I would call it vintage. There's places like Beacon's Closet, which is I don't know if I would call it vintage. It's used clothes, I guess, and
secondhand.
Yeah, and you kind of go through it and you are seeing a lot more of the newer brands at those places. I always feel now the fantasy is you take a trip to Tucson, or you go to somewhere in New Mexico, and you go to just a random person's garage, and they're gonna have the real shit, this is what my my great uncle wore, and it's gonna be all this crazy shit. That's where I feel if you really want to find the quote unquote good stuff, you got to go somewhere like that, and they don't necessarily, they're not on TikTok, so they don't know what they have. They have the amazing whatever, some amazing Levi's or some shit like that.
I mean, I feel that's why I keep hearing that estate sales are
exactly
the main thing.
Exactly,
where you do get that whole thing of an old person. I guess they die.
You don't mind taking it off their corpse. That's the good shit.
But hopefully these people keep it for so long that they that it is the good shit. It's so funny because lots of menswear guys. They get into this from their grandparents, or they say that. And I don't know if this is just my thing or maybe other Asian Americans feel this way, but my grandparents moved here in the late 60s or the 70s. So anything from the golden era, if they were kids, of course they don't have that. They came with whatever they had on there. And now they have a house, obviously, but I feel most of the stuff I find in their closet is from the 80s or the 90s, but not even the good stuff. And maybe that's just from what their income could have afforded. They're not buying Armani stuff. That's more when my dad got old, became an adult, and he started, okay, well, I'm gonna look good for it, and then he buys Armani. But my grandparents, at least my grandpa, none of that kind of stuff. Mainly polyester suits or whatever. The ties are
that's gross. That generational wealth, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely,
these are my grandparents were rich, and that's I think how you can find the people who actually are blue-blooded people who I have a house in the Hamptons, and my uncle, my grandfather went to Princeton, and they have the actual
they're wearing their Ivy League stuff. They've kept it for so long.
If they've kept it, then they might have it then.
I mean, it's kind of fun. I've seen old photos of my Lolo and Lola, and my Lolo's wearing the polyester shirts from the 70s, but he doesn't even own those anymore. I mean, it's one of those things too where I thought of this where, when you're an immigrant or whatever, and you're trying to assimilate here, you might have to keep up, right?
Yeah.
And so, because you don't want to be othered, right?
Right, exactly.
And so, like, okay, if you notice that, okay, people aren't wearing disco collars anymore, why would you keep that? You would just, get rid of it. Now you'll wear, like, you'll go to Mervyn's and then buy, like, a regular button-up shirt. And so, like, yeah, there are photos of my grandparents and their siblings wearing flared jeans, which
my dad too.
I would wear those, maybe not the polyester shirts, but the jeans. But they don't have those anymore. No, they got rid of them because, like, why would I own this stuff?
It's already bad enough, like, being, like, trying to struggle and live in this country. I need to fit in.
No, exactly. I mean, it's my grandpa, my Lulu is like that. My Lulu has always had kind of a preppy thing, and so, like, fun. Her stuff, she likes to keep onto it, and she looks classic. Like, she likes wearing loafers, and my mom, I guess she's not blue-blooded anymore. She, like, worked her way up.
Yeah.
If people have followed me and seen my mom, like, she's very, like, Ralph Lauren adjacent.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
She's very cool. Very J. Crew, I guess.
Yeah.
And she was actually the one who read the Preppy Handbook.
Oh, really?
When she was, like, a teenager in college or whatever, it came out, and she's like, this is the fucking shit.
Is the shit.
And it's funny because, like, that's supposed to be like a satirical book about, like,
it is, yeah.
But for her, as someone who
this is the guidebook.
It's the guy, exactly, And I think she knew that a little bit now, but, like, no, for her, like, that's like, oh, that's what, like, Americans wear, or what she aspired to dress like, and so, but yeah, I just never had that. Maybe on my dad's side, my dad's Chinese, and I think his side was a bit more, like, classic and preppy and whatever. I mean, Chinese, it's kind of like traditional and everything like that. But my dad didn't keep any of his dad's clothes. It really wasn't his thing. So
that's the thing is that, like, people will, we forget that before the internet or whatever, there was just cycles of clothes, and unless you like were really into clothes and knew that, like, oh, I could maybe keep this because maybe it'll come back. Yeah. Like, if you're, you're not gonna, like, if it's 1995, there was such a thing as if you wore, like, pleated pants in 1995, you were a nerd. You were like a loser. Only squares and your teacher wore that. And why would you want to look like that? Yeah, so you wouldn't, like, want to do those. Whereas now, because of the internet and all these things, lots of different looks can all fit together all at once. Yeah, like lots of you could be there. It's more you have these, like, digital tribes, I guess you could call them. Like, these are the menswear people, and you don't necessarily look like your teacher or your uncle or whatever.
No, you're doing a different guy.
No, I'm a different thing. You know what I'm saying? And you can still, like, hang out at, with your friend who's into hardcore, and you can still hang out with your friend who's into streetwear, and they all can exist in parallel.
No, that's such an interesting thing. Like, I've heard it called, like, the death of subcultures.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Where, like, there's no real, because it's all just, like, appearances. It's not really tied to a thing. Although in some cases, probably, like, the hardcore friend.
The hardcore friend is still probably very hardcore.
They're the real cool ones, actually.
Yeah, they really are.
But it's oh man, like you said it, right? Like, like all these things kind of coexisting, and also it kind of, like, gratifies you or emboldens you, because it's like, even if you're around people who are not into it, you'll be like, well, it's okay. I got these guys on Instagram who know that I'm what's up. That was menswear for a while, right? Yeah. Like why are you so dressed up? It's all good. Japanese guys follow me.
Yeah.
It's okay. I got their validation.
Exactly.
It's okay. But now, I mean, I guess that's the thing about LA, because I don't see it. But here in New York, you can at least be like, oh, I look weird right now, but just wait till you see me with the boys later.
With the homies.
Literally yesterday,
when 10 of us roll up.
I know, I could see people on the street like, what the fuck is happening? Everyone's wearing fucking trench coats.
What is this? Are they filming Marvelous Mrs. Maisel again? Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, so it's really, it's really, really, really funny. And it's also, like, I like what you said about, like, like the pleated pants, and, like, you were a nerd. It's, as someone who, like, likes vintage clothing and also likes film costuming. Yes. Like, to see, like, oh, like, when you have a cool teacher, he's not wearing pleats or whatever. Or, like, oh, there's a guy wearing a button-down collar and a red stripe tie because you want to signal, like, he's old money or he's, like, a trad, versus, like, a guy in a point collar and an abstract tie for, like, Armani stuff. Like, and you watch it, like, in Seinfeld, like we were kind of talking about earlier, where, like, like, George has, like, a very Ivy trad way of dressing, but then when, like, I think, like, Bryan Cranston's character comes on, like, he's wearing, like, a double-breasted suit because he's like a dentist. He's, like, a little bit more well-to-do. Yeah. He's definitely dressed different than, like, what George is wearing. Or even on Frasier, different characters wear suits. He's not the only one. People think that, but in the 90s, people wore suits. But, like, Frasier clearly has, like, this, like, tonal look to it.
Yeah, he has, like, this like, yeah, he wears
earth tones.
Yeah, earth tones.
You know,
he's wearing
purple.
the rayon shirts. You know what I'm saying? He's doing like this weird thing.
Rayon shirts, silk shirts, like these like fun, abstract ties, and then like people at like the office. He has like a station manager, and he's wearing like pleated khakis, a blazer, and it's like, okay, well, clearly this guy is dressing because he just he's a little shelby of a guy, and then Fraser's like very put together and very cool. But you notice these things, because it's like these are two. If these guys weren't the menswear, those are two different modes. Although maybe you'd be on that guy on Monday and one guy on Tuesday. Yeah. Like I do,
I feel we could keep talking forever and ever. So
come back.
Yeah, you got to come back. Come back again and hang out. I did want to stop and kind of touch upon because I followed you a long time on Reddit. And are you on there a lot still?
No, not really.
MFA?
Yeah, I know. RIP a little bit.
Oh, is it? I haven't been on there in a while. I used to be on there so much.
Yeah, I used to be like, I would help out people if they tagged me in like a question or whatever.
Oh, funny.
But there was a whole thing with the API, what do you call it? Protest where Reddit kind of like stopped using like third party stuff.
Oh yes.
That was a big moment. So like a lot of the guard has changed like twice, and so like
really
and the community, all the main people have kind of gone to Discord now, and it's still a great place.
I'm on Discord now. I think we're on the same Discord. One of the same Discords.
Yeah. So the MFA Discord is really great. It's obviously not the same layout as Reddit, but I think a lot of the information is still there. Also, the information is still on Reddit. So
still all the stuff. Yeah.
It's just if you want more of that classic MFA community, you got to go into Discord now because that's where everyone is. Now I feel like the MFA, the actual Reddit, is like not as great. It's like a little bit low effort. Now. But,
what is found this old thread of you. I guess this is a link.
Which one?
It's how to dress like Ethan Wong. It's permanent style wrote an article.
Wow,
This is from 3 years ago.
Wow.
And
3
then
years? Oh, wow, time flies.
I know, right? And then this is an article, and then there's like comments and stuff like that.
Here we go.
I mean, they were generally good, although it's like hard to follow sometimes because I don't know what people are
referencing.
Okay, there's like all these references here.
Yeah.
But I think you're on Reddit more at this time because you are commenting on here.
3 years ago.
Do you remember this?
Yeah, I vaguely do. I thought we were going to go as far as like Gentleman's Gazette stuff.
What happened there? What was that?
I was interviewed with Gentleman's Gazette.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is like 10 years ago or something like that. Like stuff like Gentleman's Gazette, The Modest Man, if people have remember that, and that's really old. So people can find those. I think those are still all up there. So,
how were those? How was that experience?
That was good. I like as fan. I wouldn't say I grew up reading the Gentleman's Gazette because at the time I was kind of like looking for different sources. I found Derek pretty early. But no, he's always been great. I like the style is very similar, we're kind of drawing from the same inspirations. Raphael, sorry, he goes by Raphael. Like it's been cool there and seeing how his channel has diversified there. Modest Man, that was nice of him to do. I'm a small guy, but it was really different. Where like I kind of wish they interviewed me now, where I'm like
interesting,
I'm cooler, Because there's nothing wrong with how I was back then. But I was literally a teenager. I was like 18 or 19 years old. But maybe that's part of the novelty of we got to interview this guy. He's wearing ties. And he's like 19. Graduate college, like that's crazy, But the permanent style that felt really, really cool.
Okay.
Like it felt like I had, I did something, or I was noticed by a guy who is, one of the big authorities of menswear. I got to meet him officially last night at the thing, and he's such a friendly guy, and I felt, I don't want to be like a fanboy, but I kind of am because like he's so big, but some people like kind of like. Not compare, but like, oh yeah, it's both of you guys. I'm like, well, no, he's like the real one. I'm just here writing about fucking cosplay and like, I learned this and I'm gonna wear this tie because I saw this character wear it.
Well, it's like you said, like everybody's gonna have a little bit of their own lane. And I think for him, permanent style is like,
bespoke and luxury.
Bespoke and fancy, and he has like incredible clothes, but I'm never ever going to drop that much money on something like that. And all I can do is work with my little budget and find stuff on eBay or whatever. But then for you, like, I think you have it's a very particular silhouette, I feel. There's something that's there is a, even though you have a lot of different places you draw from, there's a fit. If I didn't see your face, I'd be like, this is an Ethan fit. You know what I'm saying? Like looser trousers. I think it looks cool. It's like a looser trouser. It's like usually a tie.
Yeah, almost always.
Like kind of an interesting, almost like...
Yeah, there's a photo in there, I think, that in my head is like the most Ethan outfit, and it's one of the favorite ones. It's like a brown check jacket with gray trousers, with a green polka dot tie and a blue striped shirt. I think it's in the Permanent Style article. I love that outfit. I mean, that's basically my uniform, like autopilot. Like, it's not, most guys will do like what they call security guarding, and for people listening, it's where you wear gray pants with a navy jacket.
Yes. Security guarding.
Like a true blazer with brass buttons. But for me, I always wear a brown check jacket because it feels more casual than a blazer, and it feels rustic or whatever, and it feels old, you know, it just, there's this whole vibe to it. But like that, and doing it particularly with like big, high-waisted pants. Like, I love that. And so like that's the Ethan silhouette.
There is a question on here I wanted to get into, and I'm sure, you know, you've encountered this all the time. I feel like, so I was really big into Reddit. I was never big on Reddit, you know. I never feel like my fits translated into the digital space. I don't know why. It's just
interesting. Okay.
Maybe I just needed to do it more, but you know, like I think I always had this theory that you can look good in real life, and it's a slightly different thing to look good online. You know, I think people can do both, and obviously people do both all the time, but I think some people look really good in real life, or it's just they're fun to look at, or I get inspiration from them, and then that look might not translate into a digital space necessarily, you know? And I think too, at least when I was on Reddit, there were things I could tell Reddit would like, you know, more so than, which is why I'm glad they liked your stuff, because I felt your stuff was a little bit offbeat too, you know, like, 'cause it was like, you know, obviously there's like the Reddit, like,
uniform,
right?
Uniform,
right, exactly. And then
white sneakers.
Exactly, with the khakis and all that stuff. Anyways, but there's a question here is like, I enjoy his knowledge, I think, which is you. But don't you feel overdressed all the time? I could never go to school, work out to social scenes dressed like this. Yeah. And I think you already kind of touched on this, and you reply
with a long one.
It's not like crazy long. Okay. You know, I work at a creative agency. I'm a photographer, a podcaster. You know, so this is what I think. You know, blah blah blah. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's. Do you want to expand on that? Like, I mean, do people? I have. There was a time, menswear 1.0, I would say, 2012-ish. I'm sure you understood this, where I would try to, God, I was so fucking stupid, Esquire pilled, I would say. Like, I remember there'd be articles where they'd say, oh yeah, try wearing a suit to brunch. Try wearing a suit to all these things. And I would straight up wear a, like, Hickey Freeman, very worsted, you know, like, suit. And I would be at this thing, and my girlfriend, now wife, she would be like, why are you wearing a suit? You're wearing a full suit. And like, everybody else is wearing shorts. And I was like, oh, you don't understand. This is like who I am. And I was just like, I think I've learned that I shouldn't take myself too seriously about this, especially with clothes. And it should just be, there is such a thing as, even if you want to wear a suit, like, appropriateness to what you need to do, and you know, that kind of thing. And they got to fit in, and it's got to work. And I try not to, you know, like what you do. I think like there are ways to wear jackets where it's like more casual, or wear a denim, throw a fucking denim shirt on there. Like, or I have a lot of polo ties which are very fun. You know, right. It's got a whole bunch of dice on it. You know, like it's not just like a, like a.
Well, you're wearing a tie right now.
I'm wearing a tie right now.
With a denim shirt and a cowboy.
Exactly. You know, and it's like, I think this is like fun. You know, like it's costume.
It doesn't read as like, oh, I'm putting on airs.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Do you still feel, you know, especially in LA, like, you know, I'm kind of overdressed here for this thing, you know, and
Good question. I mean, I think what's the first thing though is like, you know, like, oh, you don't take yourself so seriously. I feel like I do the opposite. I'm like, I'm so serious that it's so funny. Like, the Frasier effect, right?
Yes.
Like, in my head, it's like I'm already so ridiculous, right? It's just like you can't help but laugh.
Yes.
And I don't. My personality, I don't mind being the butt of the joke.
Interesting.
In fact, if people know me, or people who met me or talk to me, like, I make bad jokes. I mean, if people have listened to Comedy Bang Bang with Scott Aukerman, Scott's personality, also in real life, I feel like he's bad at jokes. Like, he'll do something dumb.
Yes.
And he's almost antagonistic with how bad it is.
Yeah. He purposely does like an anti-joke. Because he knows the easy funny.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, this has been an ongoing conversation for me and my whole life. And some people get it, some people don't. And it's like, but the thing is, like, it's not like an inside joke. I'm the one that's being stupid. You're supposed to laugh at me. Yes. And so I've taken that, like, well, I guess I found menswear before that, but like hearing Scott Aukerman do that, I was like, that's like my whole thing. And so like me wearing like a fucking fedora when it's cold outside, so I look like an old man, you know, with like a coat or like a sweater vest, whatever, looking like a 1930s intellectual, whatever you want to call it. Going to the coffee shop. I get it. It looks ridiculous, but I love it. I love being ridiculous.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
It's like maximalist. It's just like how John Williams doesn't have to go that hard with these like crazy complex jazz chords in like a Star Wars score, but he does it anyway. Side note: there's this whole thing about how in the scene in The Last Crusade, Indiana Jones, where like there's like, you know, like Indy's on the motorcycle and he fights the Nazis or whatever, and he works his whole music, and when in interviews he says like you can't hear the music. Like in the sound effects, but like you hear the piece, like, you know, on Spotify or whatever, and it's so good. Like there's like there's like a theme for the motorcycle. There's a whole thing he does for this 2-minute sequence, and like, why not? Yeah, and it's like, you know, I want to do that kind of thing, and so when I go out to these places, like, it's not about being overdressed. It's absolutely being overdressed. Yeah. But like, it doesn't fucking matter, you know. And maybe I've just it matches my personality. Like, as soon as you talk to me, you're like, oh, this is a goofy guy. Like you know, I'm not. Like, it's funny, like, yeah, people, you know, Frasier, when you watch it, like, he is goofy. Like, and there's almost like this, like, insecurity he has about it, because he's really goofy, but he wants to be projecting as this, like, you know, intellectual radio host, whatever. And so, like, when you talk to me, it's like, oh, no, I get it now. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I can't stop you if you see me, like, randomly and you don't talk to me. Like, but you can think about whatever you want. But you talk to me and I'm always like, oh, like, you know, people like, oh yeah, this guy wearing a suit to the coffee shop, yeah, that's exactly the guy who would be doing that. And so, like, I never feel anything wrong with it, but, you know, maybe when I was younger, you don't have that confidence, or you think that the clothes are more important than you are, you know, and even if I like the same things, you can, you know, when you're just younger, there's also, like, the novelty of youth is a big thing where, like, even if you look comfortable in your clothes, people will be like, well, you're too young for that. But I'm approaching 30 now, which is not old by any means, but it's like, I do feel different. You know, I have a full-time job. I can go to the coffee shop whenever I want. I can have a drink, as opposed to like, oh no, I go to school. I gotta do my internship. I gotta do my homework. And my only sliver is this like outfit, you know? Like, of course it's gonna feel like a little trying too hard, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I guess as you get older, it just feels, you know, like you're
more authentic to yourself. I hate to use that word, but yeah, you know, this is who I am. These are my values. This is what I'm going to do. Well, thanks for joining the show. Thanks for doing this. We're getting literally kicked out of this piece of shit place. Where can our fans
open the doors? You know, that's the
I know,
thing.
right? Yeah. Where can our fans find? Thank you for doing this.
Of course.
Where can our fans find you and your work?
Yeah. You can follow me on Instagram at Ethan M. Wong. You know, you said, you know, your pronunciation earlier for your own name. I'll say mine. It stands for Magnai, which is Filipino. Hey. And I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but that's just you know, whatever, Asian American experience. And so I want to. Sorry, it's still going.
Okay.
And if you want to read my blog, it's alittlebitofrest.com, all spelled out. You can go there, read my work, and you can also listen to me talk like this with my other friends, Spencer and MJ, on Style and Direction, found on all platforms. It's also on YouTube if you want to look it up there. But yeah, that's just where you can find me. Please say hi. I'm a nice guy. I promise you. I'm
very nice funny. Guy. He might give you the double finger guns. That's right. That's the only drawback.
I make a Borat joke. Oh boy, I know. But
there you go. All right, and you can find me on Instagram, Nice Pants Bro. Check me out. I
really
do.
Funny.
It's fun. Yeah. I have fun. It's supposed to be funny. Anyways, and then of course follow us on Instagram at Asian Not Asian Pod. Come to our stand-up show, Hack City Comedy. The next one's going to be November 2nd. And yeah, we love you. Thank you so much. Thank you again. Sorry for this fucking disaster of an audio booth. Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye.